My mother-in-law is demanding I give her custody of my daughter. She doesn't know I have contact with the one person who can ruin her. I never thought I'd find a baby monitor I didn't buy hidden behind my daughter's stuffed elephant at 2 a.m. My husband Michael just shrugged when I woke him up about it and mumbled that his mom, Patricia, got us a really nice video system as a gift. I should have known right then that something was off. I'd just gone back to my 12-hour shifts as a pediatric nurse, and Patricia had been helping with our 3-month-old Renee during the day, while Michael worked from home. At first, it seemed like such a blessing to have help, but slowly things started feeling wrong. Patricia would show up earlier each morning and stay later each evening. She completely reorganized Renee's nursery because apparently I'd set it up all wrong for optimal baby development. She threw out the blanket my mom had knitted before she died 2 years ago because it wasn't made from organic materials. Michael kept taking her side, saying she raised 3 kids and knew what she was doing. The breaking point started when I noticed Patricia only filmed me during the hard moments. Never when I was singing Renee to sleep or making her laugh. Only when Renee was crying during diaper changes or when I was checking my work phone while holding her. She texted Michael about Renee's care schedule, but never talked to me. When I confronted her, she touched my arm with this fake concern and said she knew how hard it was without my own mother to guide me and that she was just trying to fill that role. That's when I started noticing she'd been planting seeds everywhere. At Sunday dinner, she mentioned to the whole family how overwhelmed I seemed. Her retired teacher friends would drop by to meet Renee, and Patricia would introduce me as someone who was really struggling with work-life balance. My own sister started asking if I needed more help after Patricia called her, expressing concerns. The exhaustion from night shifts made me question if maybe I was being too sensitive, but then I caught her doing something that made my blood run cold. I came home early from a shift and found her in Renee's room giving her formula when I told her to only feed her what I pumped. When I confronted her, she started crying and Michael came running. She spun this whole story about how I'd asked her to supplement because I was worried about my supply, that I forgot I told her to make the change, and was now blaming her. Michael believed her. He started documenting things in his phone like Renee being fussy after my feedings or me being emotional when Patricia overstepped. Patricia would make these subtle comments about how Renee seemed hungrier after nursing with me or how my mother had struggled with depression too, which was a complete lie. She convinced Michael that I needed more help and suggested I consider leaving my job. My best friend started pulling away after getting concerned texts from Patricia about my mental state. Even my dad took Patricia's side, saying I should be grateful for such an involved grandmother. Everything came to a head when I got home from a particularly brutal shift to find Patricia, Michael, and one of Patricia's therapist friends sitting in my living room. They called it an intervention. The therapist, who had never actually evaluated me, said she had concerns about my postpartum depression and my inability to accept help. Michael revealed he'd been documenting my mood swings for weeks at his mother's suggestion. They wanted me to take a leave from work and let Patricia move in temporarily to help with Renee. I grabbed Renee and left for my sister's house, but even she was reluctant to let me stay, saying maybe I should consider what they were saying. The next day, my hospital suggested I take voluntary leave after Patricia's concerned calls to HR. Michael texted that he was filing for temporary separation until I got help. I was living in an extended stay hotel with Renee, running out of money, when I remembered Patricia's other daughter-in-law who had supposedly abandoned her family years ago. I found her on Facebook living 2 states away and sent her a message. Her response made my hands shake. She wrote back immediately, saying she'd been waiting for someone else to see what Patricia really was. She told me Patricia had done the exact same thing to her, with documentation of concerns turning the family against her and eventually winning custody of her son. Patricia had raised him for 2 years before she got partial custody back. She mentioned Patricia had massive debts from failed investments and warned me that Patricia had been planning this since I got pregnant. My lawyer told me with the evidence and Patricia and Michael united against me, I didn't stand much of a chance. My sister asked me to leave after Patricia showed her notebooks full of twisted observations about my parenting. Last night, I spotted Patricia's car in the hotel parking lot at 3 a.m., just sitting there watching. I looked down at Renee sleeping peacefully in the hotel crib, completely unaware that her grandmother was sitting outside in the dark, waiting for the perfect moment to take her away forever. It still hurts to talk about. The phone on the nightstand buzzed. Unknown number. My hand hovered over it for a second before I answered. Sarah? The voice was barely a whisper, rushed and nervous. This is Rebecca, Patricia's other daughter-in-law. You messaged me. I sat up straighter, clutching the phone. Through the thin hotel curtains, I could still see Patricia's car in the parking lot. I can't talk long, Rebecca continued. My son monitors my calls now. Patricia convinced him I abandoned him when he was little. But listen, she documented everything about me too. Every text, every tired moment, every time I checked my phone while holding him. She builds these cases for months. A loud pounding on my door made me jump. Sarah, open up! I need to check on my granddaughter. I crept to the peephole. Patricia stood there holding Renee's favorite stuffed rabbit, the one I knew I'd packed in the diaper bag. She made one mistake though, Rebecca whispered urgently. One crucial error in court that almost cost her everything. I can't say over the phone, but I have to go, I breathed, watching Patricia through the peephole. Find the paralegal, Catherine Chen. She knows Patricia's playbook. And Sarah, don't open that door. The line went dead. Patricia knocked again, harder this time. I stayed frozen, watching her through the tiny lens. After 5 minutes, she set the rabbit on the ground with a folded note and walked away. I waited another 10 minutes before cracking the door open. The note was written in Patricia's perfect teacher handwriting. Renee was crying for this. I know you're struggling, but keeping her comfort items from her is cruel. My stomach dropped. How did she get into my diaper bag? I grabbed the rabbit and slammed the door, checking the bag. Everything seemed there, but now I couldn't trust any of it. I dumped the contents on the bed, searching through diapers and wipes. That's when I noticed my wallet felt lighter. The vending machine in the lobby rejected my debit card 3 times. Insufficient funds. My hands shook as I logged into my banking app. Our joint savings account, the one with $8,000 for emergencies, showed a 0 balance. Transferred yesterday by Michael. My phone buzzed. A text from my nursing supervisor. Sarah, HR needs you to call immediately regarding a complaint. This is urgent. I sank onto the lobby couch, Renee starting to fuss in my arms. The security guard who'd been kind to me during my late night feedings looked over with concern. You okay, hun? Before I could answer, I spotted something through the glass doors that made my blood freeze. My sister's blue Honda Honda was pulling into the parking lot at 7 in the morning. I watched her get out of her car and walk directly to Patricia's vehicle. Patricia rolled down her window and they talked for several minutes. My sister kept nodding, her face serious. By the time she walked through the hotel doors, I'd moved back to the corner with Renee. Sarah, her voice was gentle but firm. We need to talk. How did you know I was here? Patricia called. She's worried sick. She says you took Renee and disappeared in the middle of the night. She was sitting in the parking lot at 3 a.m. watching me. My sister's expression didn't change. Sarah, you need help. Let me take Renee while you get treatment, just for a few days. Treatment for what? I'm not sick. The whole family is concerned. Dad, Michael, everyone agrees you need support right now. If you don't accept help voluntarily, Patricia says she'll have to involve CPS. I stood up, holding Renee tighter. You can't take my baby. I'm trying to help you keep her, my sister said. Patricia has documentation, Sarah. Months of it. If CPS gets involved. I pushed past her toward the elevator. In the room, I frantically started packing while Renee cried. I needed to find that paralegal Rebecca mentioned. I needed help. As I stuffed clothes into the diaper bag, my hand hit something unfamiliar in the inside pocket. Papers. I pulled them out and my knees nearly buckled. They were my therapy notes from grief counseling after Mom died. Private notes I'd kept locked in my bedroom drawer. Notes where I'd written about feeling overwhelmed, about crying spells, about wondering if I'd inherited Mom's anxiety. Attached was a note in Patricia's handwriting. Michael thought these might help your doctor understand your family history. I called the paralegal's office with shaking fingers. The receptionist said Catherine Chen could see me at the public library in 2 hours. I hung up and saw 7 missed calls from HR. When I finally called back, the HR manager's voice was carefully neutral. Sarah, we've received a concerning call about potential medication irregularities during your recent shifts. We need you to come in immediately for a meeting. What medication irregularities? I can't discuss details over the phone, but Patricia Mitchell provided some documentation that we need to review with you. I hung up. Patricia had reached into every corner of my life. At the library, I found Catherine Chen at a back table with another woman. The woman looked exhausted, her hair pulled back in a messy ponytail. Sarah? She extended her hand. I'm Rebecca. She looked nothing like the abandoned mother Patricia had described. She pulled out a thick folder. Patricia claimed poverty in court while wearing a $2,000 suit and designer shoes, Rebecca said, sliding papers across the table. She said she couldn't afford a lawyer, but she'd hired a private investigator to follow me for months. Catherine leaned forward. Patricia's pattern is always the same. She documents for months during a vulnerable time, then strikes all at once. She waited until my dad died, Rebecca said quietly. I was grieving, exhausted from the funeral arrangements. That's when she made her move. A security guard approached our table. Ladies, I'm going to have to ask you to leave. We've had a complaint about you disturbing other patrons. I looked around. The library was nearly empty, and we'd been whispering. Let's continue in the parking lot, Catherine suggested. We'd barely made it to our cars when Rebecca's phone exploded with calls. She answered the third one. Mom, I'm not. Her face went pale. No, I'm not spreading lies. I'm not violating anything. She looked at me apologetically. I have to go. He's threatening to take me back to court. She pressed a business card into my hand before running to her car. Catherine knows everything. Trust her. As Rebecca drove away, I realized I had less than a quarter tank of gas and $23 to my name. I wish I could help pro bono, Catherine said gently, but I need at least $500 for a retainer. Can you get that? I thought of Mom's jewelry in the hotel safe. Maybe. Patricia's going to escalate quickly now. She knows you've contacted Rebecca. Be careful. I drove to Michael's office building. Renee asleep in her car seat. Maybe if I could just talk to him face to face, explain what his mother was doing. The security guard at the front desk looked uncomfortable when he saw me. I'm sorry, Mrs. Mitchell. You've been removed from the visitor list. Can you just call him? Tell him I'm here? He made the call, speaking quietly. After a moment, he hung up. He'll be right down. Michael came through the security doors looking haggard. He wouldn't meet my eyes. We need to talk, I started. My lawyer says no contact. He pulled out a paper. You need to sign this. What is it? Consent for psychological evaluation. If you refuse, I'll have to file for emergency custody. I noticed his wedding ring was gone, replaced by an expensive watch I'd never seen before. Michael, your mother is... Sign it, Sarah. His hands shook as he held out the pen. Please, just sign it. I signed. What choice did I have? As he turned to leave, I called out, where's your ring? He paused but didn't turn around. Mom said I should take it off for now. I used my last $20 for gas and drove to the hospital parking garage. The overnight security guard, Marcus, had always been kind during my late shifts. You can park here tonight, he said quietly. I know you're going through something. The cameras work, so you'll be safe. I curled up in the back seat with Renee, using her blanket as a pillow. My phone buzzed with a text from Dad. Patricia showed me your therapy notes. I had no idea you were struggling like your mother did. We're all here to help when you're ready to accept it. Mom never had depression. She'd had cancer, but Patricia had twisted even that. As I lay there in the dark parking garage, another memory surfaced. 2 weeks ago, I'd hidden those therapy notes in my drawer while Patricia was visiting. She'd been standing in the doorway, watching. She'd seen exactly where I put them. The psychological evaluation was scheduled for the next morning. Dr. Evelyn Marsh's office was in a building that smelled like lavender and false concern. Patricia made this appointment 3 months ago, the receptionist said, checking me in. She was very concerned about you. 3 months ago, when Renee was barely born, Dr. Marsh had a folder inches thick on her desk. I recognized Patricia's handwriting on tabbed dividers. Your mother-in-law has documented some concerning patterns, she began, flipping through pages. Emotional outbursts, paranoid thinking, refusing help. Those are all taken out of context. Sarah, saying everyone is lying or out to get you is actually a symptom we often see. I realized with cold clarity that I was trapped. Everything I could say to defend myself would sound like paranoia. Patricia had crafted the perfect cage. My phone rang. Renee's pediatrician. Hi, Sarah. I'm calling because Patricia Mitchell has been added as Renee's primary contact. She mentioned you're getting help right now, which is wonderful. She'll be handling Renee's appointments for the time being. After the evaluation, I drove past the daycare center Patricia had mentioned weeks ago. Just in case you need it, she'd said. There was Renee's name on the enrollment board, and through the fence, I saw Patricia's car in the pickup line. I parked down the street and watched as Patricia walked out with Renee in her arms, chatting with other grandmothers like she'd been doing this for months. The paralegal called. Sarah, you need to know there's a hearing in 72 hours. Emergency temporary custody. Judge Hoffman. Hoffman. Is that good or bad? She favors stable households, traditional family structures. Patricia knows this. I drove to 3 pawn shops before finding one that would take mom's jewelry. The owner looked at me with pity as he counted out $400. That's when I saw it. A photo on the wall behind him labeled preferred customers. Patricia's smiling face stared back at me. She comes in sometimes, the owner said, following my gaze. Nice lady. Always buying back family heirlooms she had to pawn during tough times. At the hospital, my one supportive coworker, Janet, pulled me aside before I could clock in. Sarah, don't freak out, but Patricia called claiming you stole medication. Security had to review the footage. I know, and the footage proved it, but the hospital is putting you on administrative leave anyway, for appearances. Patricia had known the cameras would clear me. She'd wanted me suspended, not fired. More documentation of instability. Without proof of income, Catherine couldn't work out a payment plan. I'm sorry, Sarah. Legal aid might help, but the wait list is months long. I texted my best friend Kate, desperate for someone to testify that I was a good mother. She agreed to meet me for coffee. Her face was different when she arrived, guarded. Sarah, I got an email with attachments. Your therapy notes about wanting to hurt yourself after your mom died. I never wanted to hurt myself. Those notes were about normal grief. Kate's expression softened slightly, but I could see the doubt. Maybe you should consider what they're offering. Help isn't a bad thing. That evening, my phone buzzed with a text from Patricia. I'm not trying to hurt you. Renee needs stability. Just let go. I looked at the timestamp. 8:47 p.m. The exact time mom had died 2 years ago. My hands shook as I typed back, "You're sick. You planned all of this." Within minutes, I got a call from Michael's lawyer. Patricia had forwarded my harassment, and they were filing a restraining order. By morning, I couldn't go within 500 feet of my own home. I stared at the restraining order paperwork that had been delivered to the hotel that morning. 500 feet from my own home. From the nursery I'd painted soft yellow. From the rocking chair where I'd nursed Renee every night. The process server had been apologetic, mentioning he had grandkids too. Catherine Chen called while I was still processing the papers. Sarah, I've been thinking. There might be one thing we can do without money up front. Patricia made a benefits claim 3 months ago, listing herself as Renee's primary caregiver. If we can prove she filed before any of these supposed incidents. How do I get those records? They're public, but you need to request them in person at the county office. It costs $45. I counted my remaining cash. $32. Not enough. That afternoon, I remembered Michael's email passwords. He never changed them, always used variations of our anniversary date. Sitting in the hotel lobby where the Wi-Fi was free, I logged in, knowing I was probably breaking some law but desperate for answers. His inbox made my stomach turn. Dozens of emails from Patricia, dating back to when I was 7 months pregnant. She seems tired today. Noticed she was crying again. Worried about her ability to cope. Each one crafted to build a narrative. Then I found it. An email from Patricia to Michael dated 2 weeks before Renee was born. Once we have custody sorted out, you can file for divorce and start fresh. Diane is such a lovely girl, and she adores children. Diane, I'd never heard that name before. I screenshotted everything, my hands trembling. But as I tried to forward the emails to my own account, the screen went black. Access denied. Password changed. My phone rang immediately. Michael's lawyer. Ms. Mitchell, we've been alerted to unauthorized access of private accounts. This is a serious crime. We're prepared to file charges unless you cease all contact immediately. I hung up, my mind racing. Patricia had anticipated this too. She'd told Michael to monitor his account access. The public defender I was assigned for the custody hearing met me for exactly 10 minutes in the courthouse hallway. She mispronounced Renee's name and kept checking her watch. Look, Mrs. Mitchell, your mother-in-law has documented everything. The best I can do is argue for supervised visitation. But she's lying. She's been planning this. The lawyer's expression was tired. Do you have proof? Because she has months of documentation, witness statements, and now you've committed a cybercrime. The courtroom was packed with Michael's family. Patricia sat in the front row wearing a conservative suit, tissues in hand. She'd brought 2 lawyers and several binders of evidence. Michael wouldn't look at me. The judge reviewed Patricia's documentation with careful attention. Photos of me looking exhausted. Text messages taken out of context. The therapy notes about grief twisted into evidence of instability. Your Honor, I stood up, ignoring my lawyer's attempt to stop me. I need to tell you what's really happening. The judge's expression was skeptical, but she nodded. You have 5 minutes. I told her everything. How Patricia had been documenting since I was pregnant. How she'd waited until I was vulnerable. How she'd done this before to Rebecca. Patricia's lawyer stood smoothly. Your Honor, Ms. Mitchell is displaying classic paranoid behavior. She's accused my client of an elaborate conspiracy, hacked into private accounts, and has been harassing my client's other daughter-in-law. He produced a cease and desist letter from Rebecca's lawyer. My heart sank. The judge's ruling was swift. Temporary custody to Michael, with Patricia as primary caregiver during his work hours. I would get supervised visitation twice a week, pending psychological evaluation and treatment. Additionally, the judge continued, Ms. Mitchell must maintain stable housing and employment to continue visitation. I watched Patricia hug Michael, saw her whisper something in his ear. He glanced at me, and for a moment I saw confusion in his eyes. But then Patricia touched his arm, and he looked away. The first supervised visit was scheduled at Patricia's house. The supervisor was one of Patricia's friends, a retired social worker who took notes on everything. Renee, after 2 weeks away from me, clung to Patricia and cried when I tried to hold her. She's been fussy lately, Patricia said sweetly. The disruption has been hard on her. I sat on Patricia's couch, holding my daughter who no longer recognized me, while her grandmother and the supervisor documented my emotional instability when tears rolled down my cheeks. Finding work with a pending cybercrime charge and no references from my previous hospital was nearly impossible. Finally, a nursing home 40 miles away hired me for night shifts. The background check almost derailed everything, but the director had been through a custody battle herself and understood. I moved into a coworker's basement. Cindy was going through her own divorce and needed the rent money. The space was small but clean, and most importantly, it qualified as stable housing. Every penny went towards saving for a real lawyer. I ate ramen and peanut butter sandwiches, walked instead of driving when possible, and wore the same 3 outfits on rotation. The second visit was worse. Renee had a new outfit I'd never seen, her hair styled differently. Patricia had redecorated the nursery, removing everything I'd chosen. She seems to sleep better with a new arrangement, Patricia mentioned casually, knowing it would hurt. During the visit, while the supervisor stepped out to take a call, I quickly glanced at Patricia's planner on the kitchen counter. My blood ran cold. Written in next week's dates, M divorce filing, and D moving in after. I snapped a photo just as Patricia walked in. I wanted to see when Renee's next doctor's appointment was, I said quickly. Patricia's smile was knowing. Of course, dear. Though I handle all that now. At the next handoff, I tried to warn Michael. Your mother is planning something. There's someone named Diane. She's helping with Renee, he interrupted. She's a paralegal, knows about custody arrangements. Michael, look at me. Really look at me. Do you honestly believe I'm unstable? For a moment, his facade cracked. I don't know what to believe anymore. Mom says, forget what your mom says. What do you think? He glanced toward the car where Patricia waited. I have to go. I showed him the photo of the planner. She's planning for you to divorce me next week. His face changed, but he shook his head. You doctored this. Mom warned me you might try something like this. The next visit was canceled. Renee has a cold, Patricia texted. But that evening, I saw Instagram posts from Michael's cousin. Pictures from a park play date. Renee was there, healthy and laughing, wearing another new outfit. The pattern continued. Canceled visits, new clothes, systematic erasure of my existence from my daughter's life. The supervisor documented my agitation when I asked about the cancellations. Then came the breakthrough I'd been praying for. Cindy, my roommate, mentioned seeing Patricia at the casino months earlier. She was at the high-stakes tables, Cindy said. Dropped at least $5,000 in the hour I was there. I remembered because she was wearing this massive diamond necklace but kept asking the dealer to extend her credit. Gambling debts. That explained why Patricia needed access to Michael's assets. I scraped together enough money to request Patricia's benefits filing. The date was damning. 3 months before any supposed incidents. She'd been planning this while I was still pregnant, but I needed more. I drove to Michael's office at midnight and left copies of everything under his windshield. The emails I'd screenshotted, the benefits filing, a letter begging him to see the truth. Security cameras caught me. By morning, Patricia's lawyer had filed an emergency motion. I was now stalking and harassing. The final custody hearing arrived faster than expected. My public defender had quit. Something about a conflict of interest. I stood before the judge alone. Patricia's lawyer painted a picture of an unstable woman who'd abandoned her child, committed crimes, and was now stalking the family. The supervisor testified about my emotional instability during visits. When it was my turn, I presented the benefits filing. She filed for this before any incidents occurred. She's been planning this. The judge allowed it, but Patricia's lawyer was ready. My client was simply being prepared, knowing her daughter-in-law's family history of mental illness. My mother had cancer, not mental illness. Emotional outbursts like this are exactly what we're concerned about, the lawyer said smoothly. Michael took the stand. When asked about Diane, he shifted uncomfortably. She's just a friend. She helps with Renee. Have you discussed divorce with your mother? I asked directly. Patricia's lawyer objected. Speculation. Sustained. But Michael's silence spoke volumes. His face was conflicted, confused. For the first time, I saw doubt creeping in. In my closing statement, I begged the judge to see the pattern. I mentioned Rebecca, the gambling debts, the systematic documentation. Patricia's lawyer responded by producing a restraining order from Rebecca. This woman has been harassing my client, making wild accusations. She needs help, not custody. The judge's ruling felt like a physical blow. Patricia would have residential custody. I would get every other weekend, supervised, pending continued psychological treatment. This arrangement will be reviewed in 6 months, the judge concluded. As we filed out, Michael caught my arm. His wedding ring was back on his finger. I'm not divorcing you, he said quietly. I'll figure this out. Patricia appeared immediately, her hand on his back. Michael, we need to go. Diane is waiting with Renee. He looked between us, torn. Mom, we'll discuss this at home, Patricia said firmly, guiding him away. But I'd seen something in his eyes. Doubt, maybe even recognition. That night, Cindy found me sobbing in the basement. Hey, she said gently. My ex-husband's mother tried something similar. Took me 2 years, but I got my kids back. How? I documented everything. Every canceled visit, every new outfit, every time she violated the court order. Eventually, the pattern became undeniable. She handed me a notebook. Start writing. Every detail, every date. Patricia thinks she's won, but narcissists always overplay their hand. Over the next weeks, I documented everything. Patricia's spending sprees posted on social media while claiming financial hardship. Canceled visits that coincided with family events I wasn't invited to. The gradual introduction of Diane into family photos. Rebecca reached out through a mutual friend. She couldn't contact me directly, but she passed along information. Patricia's ex-husband had left sealed documents with his lawyer before he died. Documents that proved Patricia had fabricated abuse allegations during their divorce. The lawyer wanted $10,000 to pursue unsealing them. Money I didn't have. But something was shifting with Michael. He'd started texting me questions. Did you really tell Mom to give Renee formula? When did you write those therapy notes? Patricia must have sensed the change. The next supervised visit, she was different. Aggressive. You know, she said casually while the supervisor was in the bathroom. Michael's been so much happier lately. Diane makes him laugh. Renee adores her. She's my daughter. For now. Patricia's mask slipped completely. But we both know you can't afford to fight this forever. I can. I recorded the conversation on my phone, hidden in my pocket. That weekend, I saw them at the grocery store. Michael, Patricia, Diane, and Renee. A perfect family unit. Diane was carrying Renee, who was wearing a dress I'd bought months ago but never got to see her wear. Michael saw me first. The guilt on his face was obvious. He said something to Patricia and walked over. Sarah, she's erasing me, I said simply. Your mother is erasing me from Renee's life. She says she's helping, that Renee needs stability. Do you see Diane as Renee's mother? He flinched. Number, of course not. Then why is she living in our house? His face went white. She's not living. Mom said she just helps during the day. I pulled out my phone and showed him Diane's Instagram. Photos from inside our house at all hours. Her clothes in the background, her toothbrush on the bathroom sink. Michael stared at the screen, then back at his mother, who was watching us with narrowed eyes. I have to go, he said, but his voice was different, uncertain. That night, he called me from his car. I went through Mom's room, found notebooks, pages and pages about you, dating back to before Renee was born, and receipts. So many receipts from the casino. Michael, she told me Diane was just helping, but there are plans. Legal documents with Diane's name. Mom's been paying her. His voice broke. What have I done? We can fix this, I said urgently, but you have to be careful. call. Your mom, she's listening to my calls, tracking my phone. I found the app. The line went dead. The next morning, Patricia filed an emergency motion. Michael was having a mental health crisis, she claimed. He'd become paranoid, aggressive. She needed immediate full custody to protect Renee, but she'd made a mistake. In her haste, she'd filed the motion using the wrong date, a date that proved she'd been planning this before Michael's supposed crisis. It was the same mistake she'd made with Rebecca, the crack in her perfect plan. My phone rang, an unknown number. Mrs. Mitchell, this is Judge Hoffman's clerk. The judge would like to schedule an emergency hearing. Can you be here in 2 hours? I could, and this time, I wouldn't be alone. Michael was already there when I arrived, sitting apart from his mother for the first time. He looked exhausted, but clear-eyed. Patricia had brought 3 lawyers this time, but she'd lost her composure. Her perfect grandmother mask was slipping. Your Honor, Michael stood. I need to tell you what's really been happening. Patricia's lawyer tried to object, but the judge silenced him. I want to hear this. Michael laid out everything. The notebooks, the casino debts, the systematic manipulation. He produced bank statements showing Patricia's massive withdrawals, screenshots of her messages coaching him to document my behavior. She convinced me my wife was unstable, but the only unstable person in that courtroom is my mother. Patricia exploded. You ungrateful child. After everything I've done, I saved Renee from her incompetent mother. The judge's expression was stone. Mrs. Mitchell, you'll have your chance to speak. But Patricia couldn't stop. Years of careful control shattered as she ranted about ungrateful children, about how she deserved Renee, about how I was an unfit mother who didn't deserve a family. The judge had heard enough. I'm ordering an immediate review of this custody arrangement. In the meantime, Renee will be returned to her parents jointly, with no third-party involvement. Patricia's scream of rage echoed through the courtroom. As we left, Michael took my hand. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. We'll figure it out, I said. Behind us, Patricia was still ranting to her lawyers about appeals, about rights, about how we'd regret this. But I was already walking away, toward the exit where Cindy waited with Renee. My daughter reached for me, and for the first time in months, she smiled. We had a long road ahead, trust to rebuild, wounds to heal, but Patricia had made one crucial error. Just like Rebecca had warned, she'd believed her own lies, and that was her downfall.